Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Sonoran Desert National Monument Recreational Target Shooting Resource Management Plan Amendment public meeting. We're going to just wait a couple of minutes to see if other participants join us this evening, and then we will begin. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. So once again, welcome to the Sonoran Desert National Monument Recreational Target Shooting Resource Management Plan Amendment public comment meeting. This is the second of two public comment meetings. My name is Sarah Lupus. I'm with SWCA Environmental Consultants. We are supporting the BLM in these public meetings, and I'll be your facilitator for this evening. I'd like to start by reviewing the agenda for our meeting with you this evening. We'll do some introductions. We'll do some housekeeping and how-tos for Zoom. Then we'll cover the planning overview, a review of the alternatives, a review of public involvement, the National Environmental Policy Act process and public participation components, how to provide input, and then we'll answer your questions at the end. And just a note that this meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the BLM's YouTube channel. So just to quickly orient you to the Zoom platform that we're using this evening, your microphones are muted and the chat feature is turned off. You can submit questions via the Q&A during the presentation. So there's a little button at the bottom that looks like two talking bubbles. If you click on that button, that'll bring up a Q&A panel. You can type your questions right in there. You may also see closed captions on your screen. If you want to turn those on or off, you can do so by clicking on the CC button to turn those captions either on or off, depending on your preference. So now I'd like to turn it over to Chris for an agency welcome.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us. My name is Chris Wonderly. I'm the Public Affairs Specialist for the Bureau of Land Management's Phoenix District Office. And I'd like to welcome everybody here to our meeting tonight to talk about the proposed Resource Management Plan Amendment for the Sonoran Desert National Monument. This is an opportunity to learn more about the proposed amendment, to hear about our alternatives, and to have your questions answered. So please feel free to ask questions as we go. We have a presentation here to talk about those alternatives and to learn a little bit more about the plan. So thank you all for joining us. We also have a group of BLM staffers in the background who will be helping to answer the questions after the presentation. And I'll turn things over to Katie.
Thank you, Chris. So my name is Katie Whitebull, and I am the Sonoran Desert National Monument Manager. I'm going to run through the brief history of the planning process. So the Bureau of Land Management began land use planning for this area more than 10 years ago, and the original Resource Management Plan, or RMP, was signed in 2012. That decision was litigated in 2015, and the court ordered the BLM to reanalyze the impacts of recreational target shooting on the monument. BLM worked to complete that RMP amendment, and in 2018, we signed a new decision. That decision was again challenged in 2019, and through negotiations, BLM agreed to initiate this planning effort. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick overview of all of the alternatives, but we'll move through maps that depict what each of the alternatives would look like. So alternative A here is the no action. Alternative B is monument protection alternative. Alternative C is the settlement agreement. And alternative D is the monument would be unavailable for target shooting. Next slide. Okay, so this is the no action alternative, alternative A. Under this alternative, the existing management guidance per the 2018 approved RMPA would continue. The area shown in brown on the map would be unavailable, and the turquoise or blue colored area would be available for recreational target shooting. Next slide, please. Alternative B is the monument protection alternative. This alternative was developed to protect monument objects that are considered incompatible with recreational target shooting because they have low resilience to disturbance associated with that activity, which would support the BLM's requirement to meet monument object protection criteria. Other resources were retained as identified under alternative A, and that would be the brown area that was on the last map. Again, the area on the map in brown is unavailable, and the turquoise or blue colored area would be available for recreational target shooting under this alternative. Alternative C is the settlement agreement. Alternative C was developed following the requirements of the settlement agreement, which identified specific areas to be analyzed as unavailable, as well as identified buffer distances for specific resources, such as the Kamaki Trail, and required the results of the suitability analysis to be incorporated. Other resource buffers were retained as identified under alternative B. The area on the map in brown and green would both be unavailable. Brown would be unavailable due to resources, and green would be unavailable due to topography that is unsuitable for recreational target shooting. It doesn't have proper backstop. And the turquoise colored or blue areas would remain available for recreational target shooting. Next slide, please. Alternative D would close the entire monument to recreational target shooting. Next slide. So this table shows a breakdown of areas that would be unavailable and available for recreational target shooting for each of the alternatives. The totals are depicted in both acreage and percentage. So alternative A would be 10% unavailable and 90% available. Sorry. Alternative B would be 69% unavailable and 31% available. Alternative C is 99% unavailable and 1% available. And then alternative D would be 100% unavailable. Now I'd like to have a presentation over to Chelsea McKinney. Chelsea.
Thank you, Katie. Now that Katie's gone over and reviewed all of the alternatives for the Sonoran Desert National Monument Recreational Target Shooting Resource Management Plan Amendment, we'll review with you how you can provide comments that will help us with the next steps in this project. The BLM is looking to receive information from the public that will assist us in knowing what concerns or issues you may have with the subject being analyzed, help identify items or issues that we don't know about, help with understanding use and possible conflicts. All this information assists us in providing the best EA possible and making sure we address any issues. When providing comments, please consider the following. Provide constructive solutions with documentation or resources to support your recommendations. Include any knowledge, experience, or evidence as it relates to your observations and comments. Provide GPS readings if possible when referring to specific locations. Please avoid vague statements or concerns. Multiple comments or topics with the same concern are considered one comment. Comments are not votes for or against a decision. The BLM must rely on supporting information, not the number of comments received. Avoid using form letters to convey your opinion. The other two bullet points on the far right are providing a good example and a bad example of a comment. The good comment, I located a group of roosting bats at the point shown on the attached map is, should be considered for closure as a monument object. This is a good comment because it identifies a resource, has a map provided, and explains how it's related to the project. The bad comment, I don't agree with closing the entire monument to shooting, doesn't provide any of the information. It's just an opinion. The slide on the screen is to provide you all with the time frame, milestones, and key components of the RMPA. The left side is providing you the time frame. The middle rectangles are key milestones in the process, and the right side of the screen is providing key component information of those milestones. The BLM is currently at the draft plan amendment and draft EA phase, identified by the arrow. The milestone opened with the draft plan amendment being made available to the public for a 30-day comment period, which began on June 14th. Next steps will be to review the comments received during this period and submit a final EA in late summer with the decision record signed in the winter of 2023. The public comment process officially started with the publication of the Resource Management Plan Amendment, an unsigned finding of no significant impact on the e-planning webpage on June 14th, 2023. The BLM encourages the public to provide input on issues, planning criteria, alternatives, and impacts during the comment period. This will help inform the analysis and planning process. Comments or requests for additional information or to be added to the mailing list may be submitted via email, mail, or in person at the addresses listed on this page. For those wishing to submit comments via email, please send them to BLM_AZ_SDNM target shooting at blm.gov. The second way to submit comments is through the e-planning website. Once there, you will navigate to the project page and select Participate Now. The direct project page is https://project/2019-811/510. And I believe Sarah will put the web address in the comments.
Yes, the web address and the email address are also in the comments.
Thank you. The final way to submit comments is through mail. Write a comment letter and deliver it in person or by mail to Sonoran Desert National Monument, Bureau of Land Management. Attention, RMPA EA, 2020 East Bell Road, Phoenix, Arizona, 85022. The public comment period closes July 21st, 2023. BLM will consider information received during this comment period to help identify any flaws or information missing from all our alternatives for the RMP AEA. Comments, including names and addresses of respondents, will be available for public review. If you wish to withhold your name and or address from public review, you must state so at the beginning of your letter or written comment. Such requests will be honored to the extent allowed by law. Thank you, and I'll return the presentation back to Sarah.
Thank you, Chelsea. So we'd now like to open up the meeting for your questions. If you have a question, we invite you to click on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. A box will pop up. You may type in your question and then click send. Our BLM panel is working behind the scenes to read your questions, work on some answers, and then we'll be delivering those answers to you either live or in the Q&A box. So I'll leave these instructions up on the screen for a few moments, and we'll see if anyone has any questions for us this evening. And then just as a reminder, information on how to submit your comments was also shared in the chat, and we'll return to that slide in a little bit so that you can write down any information you may have missed in the first go through. As you're considering your questions for this evening, I just want to remind you that questions submitted this evening will not be part of the project record. They're really for clarification purposes only, so that we may give you information that will help you to provide better comments on the draft EA through the comment vehicles that were described earlier, the website, the email, and the physical mailing address. As we're waiting to see if any questions come in this evening, I just wanted to put the instructions for providing your input back up on the screen in case you need to copy down any important information that you may have missed on the first time we reviewed it. So once again, the instructions for how to submit a question are back up on the screen. As we mentioned earlier, if you have a question for our panel, you can click on the Q&A button. A box will pop up. You may type in your question and then click send. Our panel will work behind the scenes to answer your question, and then we may answer it live or respond to you in the Q&A box. So I'm gonna turn my camera off while we wait to see if any questions come in. Just know that we are still here behind the scenes waiting to see if you all have any questions for us this evening, and we'll be here until 7 p.m. Arizona time. In the last few minutes of our time together this evening, I just wanted to once again share the instructions for providing your input on the BLM's during the BLM's public comment period. The email, the address for the e-planning website, and the address for mailing or delivering your comments is on the screen. I'll just give you a moment to copy down any important information you may have missed the last time we shared this. And just a reminder, as it says on the screen, the public comment period closes on July 21st. BLM will consider information received during the comment period to help identify issues with the alternatives as they develop their final RMP AEA. And with that, we thank you so much to our panelists this evening, and we thank you to our participants for participating in this evening's public meeting. And with that, our meeting is adjourned.